Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are still in a series of F1 visa interview question and answer. So in today's video, we're going to be answering the question, what if I'm being sponsored by an extended family like my uncle, my auntie, or my cousin? This is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Please do not forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so that it can be an encouragement to me to make more of this video. So how do you answer the question if you are being sponsored by your uncle, your auntie, your cousins? There's no rule that says that your uncle or your auntie cannot sponsor you. I know personally of people that their sponsors during their F1 visa interview was their uncle and their auntie. So there is no rule that says that your uncle or your auntie cannot sponsor you. But it depends on the way you respond and answer the question that will determine whether your uncle or your auntie will be considered a reliable source of funding for you. Because of the dynamics of certain society like the African society, the visa officers are aware of the complexity of families, how the families have always tried to sponsor and support each other, education, married, and whatnot. So your uncles and your aunties can be considered a reliable source of funding. And in most cases, uncles and aunties have been used over time as source of funding for so many students. So is a normal thing during visa officer. So if you know that your uncle or your auntie sponsor you, please do not be scared that that may disqualify you from you getting your visa. But the problem is the way you answer. Most time people just give incomplete answer or ambiguous answer. So how the visa officer will consider your application if your uncle or your auntie is sponsoring you, it depends on many factors. For example, what is your uncle doing? What's the relationship between you and your uncle? Why will your uncle want to invest such amount, a large amount like $20,000, $30,000 on you? Whether your uncle is married or not, whether your uncle have children or not. So if your uncle is married, the expectation and the way the visa officer will consider your application is different from if your uncle is not married. Because there are times that the visa officer will ask you, your uncle married? Does he have how many kids does he have? If your uncle has children, the dynamics is different from someone that the uncle does not have children. And it's also different from the dynamics for your uncle that have children that are grown up. So if your uncle have children that are grown up and are done with school, the situation is different from someone that his uncle has little kids or small kids. So these are things that you should put in mind when you're preparing for your answer. How do you answer the question who is sponsoring you if your uncle or your auntie or your cousin is going to be responsible for your tuition in the United States? Number one, talk about who is your uncle. Number two, talk about the relationship between you and your uncle and give reasons why your uncle is sponsoring you. What are the reasons that you can give a visa officer why your uncle will be sponsoring you? Number one, talk about your shared educational value. Talk about things that you guys value together. You can your uncle is like is a first lawyer in your family and he encouraged you to want to study law, and he was excited when you told him that you are going for a master's in oil and gas law, because that is what something that he studied in the United States before he came back to Nigeria to establish his own oil and gas consulting firm. About something and education, something that you guys share together that relates to education. Number two, you can talk about the previous way assistance that your uncle have rendered. You can talk about how that your uncle has been part of your educational journey, how he was one that paid for your tuition throughout high school. So can talk about the previous assistance that your uncle or your auntie or your cousins have rendered to you that has contributed significantly to your education. Another way to convince the visa officer about the reason why your extended family, like your uncle or your auntie or your cousin, will be sponsoring you is the nature of your family. You can talk about how that it is common practice in your family for family to support family. You can give example how your dad was responsible for your cousin's education and now he's trying to pay back the good gesture that your dad has shown towards him. So this is an example that you can infuse in your answer when answering the question who is sponsoring you. Talk about the relationship between your parent and the sponsor. Like just as I mentioned earlier, you can talk about how that your parents adopted your cousins as part of your family when your cousin's parent or father or mother died, and he has become part of your family, and that when now that is much more established, he decided to help your parents who are elderly and be tired. So this is just a way of you in paying back all the good gesture that your parent has shown towards them. There are the various ways you can explain to the visa officer in answering the question why your uncle or your auntie will be sponsoring your education. And based on all this explanation, let me give you an answer you can give to show the share educational value between you and your uncle. This is an example of how you can infuse previous assistance by your uncle, your auntie as a reason for them sponsoring your education in the US. So this is an example of how the relationship between your parent and your sponsor is a reason why your sponsor, who is an extended family, will be sponsoring your education to the United States. An example of how family support dynamic is the reason why your uncle is sponsoring you. I hope you find all this information very helpful, even as you prepare for your F1 visa interview. From me to you, I wish you all the best. Remember, this year, take those baby steps because great vision, great wealth, and greatness lie on the premise of small baby steps. Till meet again in our next video, stay blessed and bye bye.